Yo, 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 what up, doe? Welcome to another episode of the usual Henspect. Today is February, I believe the 11th. The 11th? Yeah. And I got 2 more days before I can really go to the grocery store because I got to stay under the budget. I feel like it's the 14th. I need to make it to the grocery store and I'll be perfectly, on budget. But I feel like with my rate of eating, I might be I might have to go a day early is what it's looking like. But, just wanted to talk about, I guess the matchup against the Detroit Pistons versus the Toronto Raptors. And before I do that, talk about the Charlotte Hornets matchup against the Pistons. I don't want it to be mistaken. It wasn't a hit or anything like that put out. It's just knowing that we're facing a hot team, the reason why that team got hot, and knowing that the only way to beat that team is to really approach where the momentum is coming from. And it was Moses Diabate. I don't care what anybody say about that team. That winning streak was on his prowess on the court. And being a part of Detroit, having the Detroit franchise is what I was exposed to. I understand it to be a defensive rhythm to when a guy really becomes a presence on the court. And for a team to have a chance, that defensive rhythm can't be caught. If it's caught, it's going to be difficult to play against. Offense is going to be an uphill battle. And Moses Diabate was that defensive guy on that team. They picked up on his rhythm. And so that's where my post came from. It was more so talking about how I understand it to be a defensive rhythm and not a dirty way. It's just I can understand when the passion is high, the success is real, and that energy is being something it becomes almost a bit of your life force. How it's starting to slip away can be very triggering to fight or flight. And that's what I feel like turned into that fight in that game. Just wanted to make clear that it's not a hit or anything that I put out on guys. But I will let you know, I will get to dissecting everything about any player or team and make sure that I put that on the board as this is what it is and how to make that a non-factor. Me personally, and of course I checked out some of the different broadcasts on the internet, it's way better to me than the foul merchant version of the NBA, the flopping version of the NBA, and the easily forgettable squads throughout the years version of the NBA the last few years have been before this year. That, a lot of that, you understand the battle that they were in for the season. It seems just to be a bit more obvious when it comes to teams having that sort of oomph about them. They chest poked out, some flexing because, they put in a lot of work working out. And just kind of the in season, saying rivalries that develop, it becomes a bit more of a memory of the NBA. And so it's a bit, more unforgettable. I think everybody will remember if Charlotte decides to keep that momentum going, even though they got to endure through 4 games without 2 of their main, tough guys, to call it nothing else, right? And make it to the playoffs because they'll remember, how this season went for real. And, that's for a couple of different teams, right? Moving forward, though, take that experience as a lesson. Be able to kind of channel that into a game. Know that it does get chippy, but, maybe find a better way to express it. Even though I know things happen, who can blame any of the guys, right? You put in all that work. It's a competition. And sometimes implications behind the competitions or just, repping the set, your franchise, and making sure that people put some respect on that name when they come in the arena, that, it gets the way that it does. And not only that, the story of who you were on the court, right? Especially in this era of the NBA. Shout out to the Detroit Pistons. They're going to have to endure some games, reaching on their bench, which should be exciting, right? I'm looking forward to if Chaz Lanier gets used, knowing that I feel like he's done a pretty good job at working on being a dependable shooter. I feel like the next stage for him as he goes to solidify that role with the franchise is also picking up on, some dependable level of ball handling, just in case he develops into one of those guys that, because he stuck around, does some, filling in ball handling duties with the player personnel on the court, that maybe going into the off season, what he also adds to his bag is the ability to handle the rock or on some, makeshift point guard duties on the court, just to open up the opportunities. I'm looking forward to Isaac Jones getting into the game every once in a while. But Kevin Huerter, I feel like that's going to be one of the big implementations of personnel into the lineup, and just the type of impact he's going to need to have. The defensive aspect of him being on the court is going to be uber important. And I feel, my fault, that little bit of a glitch. And I feel like he's going to get, called on a lot. And there's going to be a couple of matchups where he's going to need to be able to play solid defense. I would want him to play kind of, arm's length spacing against a defender ball handling. When it comes to that player receiving a screen, closing out and really getting into trail mode. And as the guy continues to go towards the bucket, falling off on the pick guy, because it's not going to be where I'm going to see him making a defensive play trailing from behind. He might just be in the way defensively, but getting to the point of having some sort of stop a pass or help defend the pick and roll because your guy just kind of stepped up and took the penetration off the pick. And really just, staying available as a shooter. If the three ball isn't there and you got to take a dribble inside the line, take that dribble inside the line, hit that two, but put the ball in the bucket and do things like box out, kind of communicate, play tag on defense, so that the communication is real and the rhythm can stay there defensively. And, just put 100% effort out there. The little hustle taps that you can get to the team, the touch passes on a fast break or something like that, swinging the ball around, the off-ball screens to get a guy into his preferred spot as a pass can be provided to him for an open shot or a better shot than what he would get. And these next few games are going to be pretty important. Coming off the bench for Kevin Huerter. I would like to see him do that. Hopefully, with B-Ball Paul more than likely getting more minutes, whoever's going to be behind him, maybe it's one of the G League call-ups. He understands that he could come in and make an impact, just continue to be that help on the court, that teammate. And when it's, one-on-one, he stay big, get tall when he needs to. And if he can on the help side or two, get a deflection or maybe even a block, right? But to make sure scoring isn't easy, but not to get in foul trouble as one of those guys that'll be getting called in to help out in the game. So, hopefully that becomes the next man up mentality. Result. These next few games after the All-Star break is going to be pretty big. The first test is the Toronto Raptors. They could put up buckets. They're going to fight. They got some guys that, they don't mind a little battle within the game, right? And I'm a quiet fan of Scotty Barnes. I ain't gonna lie. I was hoping that was going to be one of the off-season pickups a few seasons back for us, but it is what it is. And those guys are really humming right now, so it's going to be a good test for us. I feel like the scoring for Detroit could be picked up on by Cade when it comes to what Duran and Stewart would contribute to a game, right? And not only that, whatever he doesn't pick up, it could kind of be spread around with the guys coming off the bench, maybe the vet, Tobias Harris. And I feel like it should be some juice for Javonte Green to come in and know that it's a little bit of extra to pick up. Asar should, squeak out a couple of extra buckets. I feel like that's his mentality right now. At some point we'll talk about whenever the matchups kind of dictate someone else picking up the slack that's, being created when it comes to somebody playing in the game, that it becomes just a conversation. We'll be able to pick it up and kind of implement ourselves. But I feel like we should be good. We should be good. It's just, we're going to be a little bit smaller. But Tolu Smith should be a good fill-in. If Bobby Clinton plays with size, it should be a good fill-in if he gets in the game. But, yeah, it should be a good one. And Toronto is close to home. Let's get that game in the books and get home to start having our conversations, recuperate a little physically, and get ready to lock in for the next few games. So the whole mountain climb, mock playoff run that started with a play-in game, right, is at the point where we're up 2-1 in the series. If we lose this game, we go down 3-2. We can only even it up. If we win this game, we're up 3-1. And the next game after the All-Star break will be the closeout for the first mock series, as every series for the next 2 or 3 series, 4-count games, is going to start with us being down 0-1. And I feel like no better way than the next, 4-game stretch after the game after this, at the 4 games after that, starting and pretty much making it through that stretch without beef stew is going to be pretty telling, as last year we lost beef stew in the first round playoff matchup against the New York Knicks, and we were affected. I feel like beef stew would be a big enough professional or good enough professional to find his footing back in the lineup when he returns. We have to be able to sustain our level of success, even though he's going to be gone, and we're going to have a whole 7 games without him. So it's a good test. Let's get this series in the book, and get to the All-Star break. Have fun out there, work together, and just play loose, right? It's some responsibility to be handled. Play loose. I know that guys, it's just their chance to play a little tougher when they play against us. Maybe the whistle is a bit tighter, and they understand that. This is a longer recording, and maybe it deservingly so needed to be. I just wanted to reiterate, I don't put out hits on guys, but I will let guys know, hey, you're noted in regards to what you contribute to for your team on the court. And be ready for that to be stopped. Not a no-hit type of way, though. Come on, man. I feel like I deal with a lot of that, especially with the bad communication that's out here. And communication trends that's out here. Like 2 years ago, everything was being repurposed as far as a saying or phrase or slang terminology, to where, I guess if you weren't in, you didn't understand. And so there was no way you can get a win in life. And, that was a very weird time. And some people just ain't letting that go because it's a part of their youthfulness in their lifetime, right? So, I just to reiterate, I don't do things like that. I got to be very clear with how it is that I talk. And if you listen in that very new age way of redefining phrases or statements, or the subliminal messaging is more so important than the actual words being spoken. I can't do anything about your translation of the words that I use. What I can do is reiterate that I am saying something straight up. I will even let you know, hey, look, I'm looking for you to pick up the in between the lines of what I'm saying, because I'm trying not to say it out loud just to make it a thinking game. But I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, yeah, good luck, you guys. And I'm wishing that, something bad happens to somebody. The whole way I say it with the enunciation, with the, just the tone that I say it in, as, saying otherwise. And I'm not one of those type of people. And I'll even let you know I'm being sarcastic if I'm saying something, right? So, yeah, just wanted to make sure that was clear. Looking forward to catching the game. Apparently, I'm supposed to still be stepping outside. And that may be a level of success in a direction. It doesn't work when it comes to me studying for the things I need to study for, budgeting what it is I need to budget, and staying at the level of nutrition that I'm preferring to stay at for the long haul. So there's no representation volunteer-wise of me out in the streets, especially not until I get what it is that I want. That maybe I decide to associate with somebody, right? And nobody's to benefit in that space. And this is like that announcement as it should have been understood over a year or two ago. And apparently these people are, whatever he says we're about. And I've told them millions and millions of dollars over a year ago, in a very specific way. And it ain't came close to coming into fruition. So I'm not even, trying to entertain anything that they would want to represent in my energy out there. Like I specified that they pretty much will be down with twisting anything else that I say, and saying that, they're taking cadence from me when they're ignoring that thing is the one thing that I would want from them. Right? I would want that from them. And they can't start there, so I don't want to hear anything about any association with them. But that's pretty much it. Let me go ahead and get off of here. I just extended that way further than what I wanted to. But I did have to kind of clarify a few things. It's funny that the words can get twisted in that sense, and it goes completely sideways from the direction it's supposed to go in, and that's people's entertainment. So, signing off. It's the usual inspect. This is Cleves. I holla.